Good morning. I'm excited to introduce our speaker this morning, Theresa Falder. Theresa began her teaching career at Livingston Central High School in 1992 and taught various social studies courses and health. And then in the late 1990s, Theresa and Meg Tolley created the archaeology class that Theresa then taught until 2020. For the last 15 years or so of Theresa's career, she taught American government classes as well as archaeology. Theresa retired in 2020 with 27 years of service, and she is married to Buzz Falder, and they have a 16-year-old daughter, Sophie, who is a student at McCracken County High School. She is active in her church and enjoys kayaking, metal detecting, RV camping, and CrossFit, which I'm quite envious of that. So please help me welcome Theresa Falder.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation to speak. As I told Catherine, I don't know what I can tell you guys that you don't already know about this county, but I did. I started teaching here in 92, 93 and retired in January of 2020 and louder. I retired in January of 2020 and just very grateful, very thankful for my time at Livingston Central. You don't always hear everybody say these or other teachers say this, but it was truly a family, truly, a community. And I loved it. And I'm just, thank God and very thankful for my time there. So I'll just get into it. Like I said, 1992, 93 is when I hired on, brand new, right out of Murray State University. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. Terrified. And I probably have my dates wrong because it was a really long time ago. And I have a external hard drive that I had all my files and all my pictures and everything saved to, and it went kaput. So I found this. This is an old presentation that I don't remember when I made that presentation, but anyway, that's about all I've got. Plus I've got our site report, our report that we did, and all the other information. So it's all I got, that's saved. And so I'd like to, share this stuff with you. So sometime in the mid-90s, and Miss Cothran, you may be able to help me remember exactly. They were, I gotta get myself turned around here. They were putting a nature trail up at the high school. And I was brand new, so I wasn't in on anything. I was, like I said, I was just a brand new teacher. And I believe it was Lee Jones was a superintendent at the time. And from my understanding, he said, you better check up there because there is a Civil War gun emplacement up there. We better check before we do any kind of, excavation or whatever. So they called in Ken Karstens, Dr. Ken Karstens from Murray State University, who's he had been a professor of archaeology there. And in one spring break, so that spring break for Murray, he brought all his, or some of his students up here, and they worked up at what we know as Fort Smith. And they really, really did a lot of just surveying. They had the metal detectors out, they were mapping, they were checking, they were looking at everything. And the nature trail went on. So it was okay. They went on as planned. But what they did, and I don't know how many of you have been up there. I mean, probably all of you have been up there. As you go around I always came from the other way because I was coming up from the high school. But if you go around the water tower and then you enter, and as you enter, I might have a picture on here, I'm not sure. That area is where we focused our archaeology. So our Dr. Karstens did, and we later did. So there's a gun. I guess I'll get to that. Okay, I couldn't get my slides to advance in the slideshow, so you're just going to, please bear with me. I'm just going to have to use it as it is. Okay, so this is our archaeology program. This is the original sign from the trail. We always, at the school, it was called Up the Hill. Everybody knew what you're talking about. It's Up the Hill. And I believe they've started redoing that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
they've renovated it a few years now, every school year. They
Okay.
get there and clear it and
yeah, that's a treasure.
yes, it
It
is.
certainly is a treasure. Okay, so yeah, here we go. So this is, okay. I believe I'm standing on the outer wall, looking to, that's the gun emplacement. That's where the 32-pounder cannon would have been. And then this right here under the blue tarp, that's the remnants of Dr. Karsten's and us, the first time that we dug there. So, I'm probably going to get ahead of myself and tell stuff again because I get so excited when I talk about it. So please forgive me. But under that, that's where the guard, what we think's the guard shack was. Okay. So that has been covered up now. So it's safe. It's protected. It's covered up with, a pile of dirt just kind of got dumped, but that's okay.
Is it marked though? I mean, would somebody be able to locate that site?
Probably yes. There should still be, for us, you can't see it, but would be about right over there, is a metal pin that's sunk into the ground. And that's where we, as the class, that's where we take all of our measurements off of. So we go up there, find the pin, and then we know where everything's oriented on our map that we have. So yeah, probably so. And I'm sure Murray State has some of the stuff, I think. And then, Kentucky Archaeological Survey also has some of the stuff because both places worked on it. But okay. So this is the history of this program is the history of our class. So in 97, 96, 96, 97 is when we started the archaeology class. So Livingston Central decided to go on block scheduling, which is 4 classes per day, then they're an hour and a half long. And then at the semester, you change and you do 4 different classes. And Meg Tolley and I, we had worked with Dr. Karsten's, with his group that came over that spring break. They allowed the teachers to go up there and work. And we just were really interested in it. Now, I'm sure or heard of Debbie DeWeese and Vicki Conyer. Their students really did a lot of work with Dr. Karsten's the first year up there. And they even did was it a play, Mrs. Cochran?
Yes.
They did a play about Fort Smith, and y'all wrote an anthology.
We wrote a book on it.
Yes.
Anthology of stories about Smithland.
Yes, and we used it extensively. Thank you for that. So we worked with Dr. Karsten's the first year. And then that summer, Meg and I attended a class at Murray State, it was in Frankfurt called Digging Your Community. And there I met Gwen Henderson, Dave Pollock, Jay Stockman, who are all going to be major players in this program. So we met them. It was a teacher archaeology class, and Meg and I were just sold, okay, we gotta start an archaeology class, which we did. They gave us permission to do it, and we did. So the first year we worked with Dr. Karsten's kind of loosely up on the hill. He didn't really come up there a whole lot, and I wasn't an archaeologist. Later I did take a class, but I was never an archaeologist. I'm an amateur, So after the first year, and we're so excited, and we're going to do it again next year, he comes to us and he says, well, I'm retiring and I'm closing the site. So I was devastated, of course. So I thought, well, wait a minute. I've got connections at Kentucky Archaeological Survey. So I called Gwen Henderson. Wonderful, wonderful lady. And she's like, oh, we got you. We got you. So then I appealed to Miss Cochran, and she allowed us to come and dig up her yard at the Dowling Bush House. So we shifted from Fort Smith down to the Dowling Bush House. And I was coaching softball. I could drive the bus, so it was easy for us to get down there. So every year from that year forward until I didn't actually do it in 2020 because I was retiring. I was retiring at half a year. Until 2019, Gwen sent at least one professional archaeologist to Smithland to work with us every single year. A lot of times it was 2, sometimes 3 or 4. And they would usually come in, one after, they'd spend 2 days with the kids working. And what we tried to do was the entire archaeological process. So before the archaeologists would get there, say in the fall, early fall, I would do all the teaching, all the book work. You know, so we'd learn about the history of archaeology, the methods of archaeology, you know, all those sorts of things. And then usually it was a man named Jay Stotman and later Lori Stahlgren. They would come, they would take the kids up the hill. They would have them do all the pieces of the archaeological process. So, you know, we would do the research, we would do the survey, we would do the excavation, the cleaning, the preservation, and the publishing. So everything that a real archaeologist does, our kids got to do. So, you know, and we did it every year, and thankfully every year we found stuff. So some years not as much, but it was okay because we still found artifacts, which is what, you know, the exciting part is. The archaeologists used to tell us that only about, I don't even think it was a fourth of their time, but not very much time is spent actually doing the stuff that's the most exciting, which is the excavating. Most of it is spent in the lab, cleaning and trying to figure out what it is and when it was used for and all those sorts of things. So, but like I said, we got to experience all that. Now, our second site, so 1 year at Fort Smith, then we moved over to the Dowling Bush House for, and I don't remember how many years. It was a while that you were very gracious. And there we go. And this presentation is probably from the early 2000s. So, and I want to say maybe we did this at a conference somewhere. Meg and I present, and that's a giant snowball in your yard, by the way. Okay, and here's the archaeology. I'm sorry, like I said, the slideshow's not working.
That's correct.
Okay, so here we go. So here's our kids digging. You probably see some faces that you know, and this has been, goodness. Well, there's Amy Travelstead, and I know she's got 2 boys and married, and so it's been probably early 2000s again, probably. So what they're doing here is you can see the orange. Okay, so what they do is they have to lay out a grid. So the whole site's mapped, but we don't just go in there and dig. So we've got a point of reference that is sort of arbitrary that the archaeologists will come in place. And then from that particular point, all of our units are placed off of that. And we use 1 by 1 unit so you can see. And she's showing them how to set it up using the Pythagorean theorem. Now, I am not a math teacher. I had to refigure it out every year when I would take my kids out into the front yard of the school to learn how to do that before the archaeologists came. But they would take 2 tapes and then they would figure out a perfect square using that method. So that's what they're doing here. So this is the first thing they have to do is set their units up. Usually we open 2 to 3 units, and I usually had around 20 something kids, sometimes closer to 30. But there was enough to pretty much keep everybody busy. So here they're taking the sod off. And you can see our screens right back here on the sawhorses. That's where we screen the dirt. If you watch, okay, I have to say my guilty pleasure is the Curse of Oak Island show. Okay, you've seen the archaeologists doing it. That's exactly what we did up there. Screening the dirt, all those sorts of things.
Theresa,
Yes.
were you digging at the Dowling Bush House because it was once the county clerk's office or Captain Bush's house?
All those things. All those things. I knew it was a historic site because of Miss Cothran.
Okay.
And like I said, you know, our site got closed. So I'm telling you, we're getting ready to start school and I don't have a site. And thankfully we did have a site. So again, here they are taking the sod off and they're screening for artifacts.
Now, this used to be where you're digging right there, used to be an elaborate rose garden,
Really?
from what I understand.
We didn't dig it up, I promise. If it's not there, it will be dug.
And there were brick walks and the whole 9 yards on the riverside of the house.
Really?
And I know Tom has found a lot of the brickwork and all that, and fixing the yard and all that.
Well, I know you
Not
said
the
you
majority.
guys brought in a lot of dirt to even things out. So I think, a lot of that stuff we went through, we found, we could, actually Jay could see that,
Mhm.
and that's Lori with the hat on. And I don't know what they're looking at. It's probably a feature of some kind. A feature is so you have artifacts, which are things, right? Things that you can pick up and take with you. And then you have features that are non-portable. So like a stain in the soil is a feature, which would might be a trash pit, or it might be brick wall. It might be some things I'm going to show you here in just a second. If I can, there we go. Okay, here they are. You can see this is a smaller, this is a test pit. So we were gonna, at the end of the second or third day, he would put some students on to test pits, shovel pits. So that was, okay, where are we gonna dig next year? So they're just doing a straight down hole for as far as they can go down, and they're sifting it for artifacts. So that's a test pit. Looking at some artifacts. These are some of the artifacts, and these I'm sure are familiar. We've got a little ceramic baby doll's foot here. We've got the canning, the ceramic canning liner. Do you call it a liner?
The lid, is it the lid?
Well, the lid is, that goes on, like today, you
Oh,
pop them
yes.
off and you throw them away, but
Yeah.
these were ceramic ones.
Oh.
And I think that I don't know, that might be a plate. We found lots and lots and lots of whiteware pottery in that. Let's see, which one was that? This one went pretty deep. And here you can see, so you see those distinct layers in the soil. So that got cleaned up, and I just use that picture a lot with my kids to show them the stratigraphy of a site. Because you're looking at time here.
What are we looking at?
Honestly, I don't remember what those different, that darker layer, you can obviously see it. You can see, it looks like it has something in it. I don't remember what those were. And this is, do we think that was the old house that had been on that site? That was still out in the yard, out in close to the gazebo.
Oh. Old house that had been there?
Maybe torn down in the 1970s or 80s.
I don't know that there was a house on the riverside.
Okay.
Now, on the corner there was a house that, or years and years ago, who was Blount Hodge built for his slave.
Yes.
There on that corner.
Yes, and all that stuff, all the will and everything, I've lost it because it was on my, which is here. I was gonna say, I guess it's here at the courthouse where they have the archives. I don't even know where they have that stuff anymore.
Oh, they would. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They've got
his will was in there, and
about what he left to his slave.
yes,
Yeah.
and about how he was concerned that maybe his son or sons,
Yes.
were gonna kill him.
He didn't
Tried
say,
to kill him.
he,
Yeah.
he said that he was afraid somebody was going to poison it.
Mhm.
He didn't say who.
Yes. That's
He
a lot of
did-
intrigue, huh?
Yeah.
A lot of intrigue.
Well, he's buried outside the family too.
Well, the kids and I would walk, because we would go up to the cemetery and walk and look at some of the headstones, and we saw the Blount Lodge one up there.
Yeah, he wasn't in the tomb. He's outside the tomb.
Interesting. Okay, so now you see a feature. I don't know if it's easy to see here. So you see the difference right there. So this was a trash pit. I don't remember what was in it. All of the records and everything went to KAS, which was at UK or University of Louisville at the time. They're now at Western. But like all the records and everything, we would fill out all the paperwork and stuff when we sent it to them because they preserve it. And this is on the other side of the house, the herringbone, believe, walkway. So that's a feature too. I mean, really, you could take it out, but it would not be in the condition that is in. So it's not an artifact; it's a feature.
So that was on the Highway 60 side of the hill?
Yes, that's like right alongside the house. And was that something that was, I mean, covered over from a long? I mean, it's hard to tell, you know, dirt wise. It looks like it's pretty far down there, but it's not. That can be
Was
deceiving.
that in the vicinity of the old cellar?
It was along. So if I'm facing the Dowling Bush House, it's right along here, along the side.
Okay.
Do you want me to come in and dig it up for you?
You may have to redig it.
Okay, I'm on it. We could look at those coordinates and we could probably figure out where it's at. And this is, of course, you know, all these pictures of digging and lab work and stuff. It didn't matter what site you were at. It all looks pretty much the same, right? You're on your hands and knees, you're digging, you're getting those artifacts, you're screening them, and then you're cleaning. And so this is the lab work that we did. So we're back at school now. And so the archaeologists have left, and now we have all these artifacts. And from Dowling Bush House, it was bags and bags of artifacts. It's even going to be even more when we move over to the Gower House. So this is a nail size chart, and archaeologists call those burnt Cheetos because that's what they look like when you pull them out of the ground. They're just nails. Those are, most of those are square nails. So, you know, they're not modern. Those are 1800s. And what we would do is, of course, we have to figure out what the size on all those are. So, you know, there are archaeologists who study those things, and they can tell you from the pattern, from like however many, what size nails we have, probably what the structure was, which blows my mind that they can do that. So we had to, you know, the kids are laying those nails out and trying to figure out the size of all of them. And there they are, sitting in the library, working on all the, that looks like just a bunch of nails, although that might be some buttons and stuff right there. So it was kind of tedious, you know, the cleaning and stuff, and that's staged. I said, look like you're in contemplation. Here's some more artifacts. There's the stuff you saw in the picture a few slides ago. And then we have a lot of window pane glass here. Buttons. I don't remember what that is. But all that we have to sort. All of it we have to clean. We have to sort it. We have to catalog it. The cataloging are that paper up there in the beginnings, in the early days of our archaeology. We had to do it all on this form. And then he had a program that we had to use, and then I would send him the information. Later, when we went back to Fort Smith, it was all online, and that made it so easy because we were just putting that stuff in really, really quickly. But you have to talk about like the attributes of everything. So you have to say, you know, what category does it fall in? So this would probably be entertainment, or, you know, there's transportation, there's arms, there's kitchen, that kind of stuff. So that kids had to determine where it fit. Then you had to answer all these questions about it. Like, you know, if it's a piece of pottery, what kind of glaze was it? Well, we just did our best. I'll just tell you that. We just did our best because a lot of times we didn't know. And then the real archaeologist would try to look over everything and maybe fix some of the things that we made mistakes on. Okay, so from the Dowling Bush House, we move over to the Gower House, which you know is on the river. I love it down here. So much history. So much history. In fact, one day we were at the Dowling Bush House still, and Jay walked over across the street to an adjacent lot, and he just dug a little hole with his trowel and he pulled up pottery. I was just like, it's everywhere, everywhere. So we moved to the Gower House. Now the Gower House had been dug by Murray State, I know, and also UK. So that's why we were able to dig. So the different universities, it's not like you can just go start working on the site. First off, you gotta have a permit, you know, and if another university has it, you can't just go, you have to ask permission. So, because UK and KAS had been working with it, they allowed us to go over there. This is the foundation. I don't know what those black lines are. I think it's when I switched over from PowerPoint to Apple, it messed things up. But I do know in that, I'm pretty sure it's that unit that they found a Native American blade right there in the because it's the foundation trench. So they would dig out the trench to make the foundation. So Jay had us go look, and sure enough, there it was. And again, all that stuff is with KAS. We didn't get to keep any of that stuff.
Because somebody else had a permit for that.
Yeah, well, because they preserve it, they curate it, they keep it. And in fact, they have everything from Fort Smith too. The only things they don't have from Fort Smith are the few things that are on display upstairs at the school.
In those glass cases.
Yes, and I haven't looked in a few years. I'm hoping it's still there.
So a person could actually contact KAS and request access to view those artifacts?
I guess. I don't know how that works, but the person I would ask for would be Gwen Henderson, because she would know. Yeah, and that's Jay. I don't have the picture. I thought I did where, so the L of the Gower House? Well, it had a twin. It had the other side. And that's gone now. But when we were digging here, let me just check. I don't think it's in there. That might be the start of it. But it got the guy, one of the archaeologists came, he was in the unit that was about this deep. So he was down inside of it. But they found the other side, which, they didn't find it. It was there, right? But they opened up the cellar. And so they surmised, with all the things that they found down in the cellar, all this burnt stuff, that it burnt, and they just threw it on in, covered it up. But we found a lot of things. We found a lot of bones there, because it was an inn. Found lots of bones, mussel shells, I guess, or oyster shells. I think they were oyster shells. So, kind of fancy dining there, right? So that was really, really, really neat. And as much as we found at the Dowling Bush House, we found probably 2 to 3 times as much there, just because it was so. Because I think the Gower House, am I correct? It's like 1740s that was.
Smithland was not in, let's see, 1898. Is that not the earliest year?
1790.
17.
1798. Yes, the earliest years. I would think the
So,
Gower House
probably
was
that.
built
Yeah, about that. I know they say it's the oldest inn
later.
in Western Kentucky.
Look, 1925.
Okay.
Okay, Kent Karstens had made that statement.
Who did?
Kent Karstens had made that statement that it was built in the 1810s, 1895, thereabouts. Yeah.
Okay.
The L was added in between 1832 and 1835.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, this is still, okay, so that's the porch there of the Gower House that comes around like this. Yeah, this is probably the beginnings of that unit I was telling you about, where the archaeologist was way down inside, and you can see all the bricks and everything that's in there. If I'm going too fast for the pictures, let me know. I just don't want to bore you. I don't remember what this one is.
It looks like
It also looks like a foundation stone, or like a fireplace hearth.
yeah, it does to me too.
So I will just mention this. When the first time that we dug at Fort Smith, I don't think it was us that found it. I think it might have been Murray State. But in the place that's what they call the guardhouse, they found a large flat rock like that too. And the theory is that is the hearth. That's where the fireplace was. And you can see, and I wish I had those pictures. I just wish I still had those pictures. But you can see behind it are the bricks that had fallen from the fireplace over the years. Sorry, I'm jumping around there. Just screening for artifacts. This actually is the dig. This is the year that KAS did a video, and it was on urban archaeology in Kentucky. It's like beneath the streets or beneath, I can't remember. I've got it written down here. And actually our kids were featured in that. So it's not very much, but you can see this kind of the shot of the bus and the kids digging and stuff. So we're in one of their videos, and it's on the KAS website but you got to scroll all the way to the end to find us, but we're there. Lab work here, like I said, it looks the same. We're cleaning artifacts, just a lot more. You see all the bones over there on the side. And that might be some of the oyster shells as well. A foreign exchange student from Thailand. And he's got a jawbone or something, so I don't cleaning our artifacts. And we use just a bucket of water and toothbrushes, and that's how we clean them. Then we let them sit out to dry. Lots and lots of artifacts. So some of the things that we accomplished as a class, we've been featured in Trial and Pen, which is the newsletter of Kentucky Archaeological Survey, and I believe I got a copy of that. We had 2 students who presented at the archaeology conference, the 21st, I don't remember what year that was, Matt Hall and Brian Wilson. And that's the PowerPoint that I've lost, that I don't have anymore, that they presented. So we had 2 students present to the archaeologists there, which was really cool. Meg Tolley and I presented at the National Council for the Social Studies with Gwen about archaeology in the classroom. With Gwen also, Meg and I became teacher facilitators for it's called the Intrigue of the Past. It's Project Archaeology curriculum. And it is a program of the Bureau of Land Management, which is they still do it today, but it teaches teachers how to use archaeological concepts in just like if in your math classroom or your science class or whatever classroom. So it's all sorts of things that teachers can use and not be teaching archaeology, but teach those concepts. So we did that with them. We were featured in the West Kentucky Educational Cooperative newsletter. I also have that. We were featured in the video series. I guess that's it. We also had, after this one was done, I had 2 students that presented at the archaeology conference in, I think it was at Ken Lake or Lake Barkley. So they presented a paper there also. This is, so this is the paper that I think I'm way off my outline, so forgive me. Like I said, I get started talking about this and I get a little bit excited. Okay, so like I said, we did every part of it. Research, planning, mapping, surveying, excavating, recording, cleaning, preserving, and publishing. So we did other like PowerPoints, and those again are the things that I have lost, but this one is the last paper that we did. And this one was a collaboration of like 4 or 5 years worth of students. Okay. So I have 2015 and I think 2019. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Let me see if I can make this look better. Now, anyway, oh no, this is a different picture. Okay, can you see this? That's the fireplace. And okay, that is the wall. So the school's down there. So that's the wall. And then the hearth was like right in here somewhere.
And that, you all did cover that up.
That has been, like, all those bricks are under dirt now.
Okay, because there's, we invited some of the school representatives to be here today, but unfortunately school has just
Yes.
dismissed for the summer. And that's very unfortunate because they're using this site now, and that when they did their initial clearing a year or two ago, that's my memory, there's a stack of all kinds of bricks, pieces of what we think maybe marble, maybe some things that were taken out of the cemetery. There's just a pile.
Really?
Yeah, and so
That wasn't up there in 2020, last time I was up there. so
I mean,
we don't know.
there's big. Didn't you see that stack of stuff with me? I went up there one time, and of course, we've read a lot about. There's an article by a woman by the name of Patterson, I believe.
Yes, by the way, I brought you, I didn't know if you had a copy of it, but I got one that I bought. So I wanted to give you guys that if you wanted it.
It's Patterson letter.
Yes, yes,
She's talking about the conditions of living at Smithland during occupation.
yes. And we use her heavily in this paper,
Okay.
which I found out from your paper, from your students' anthology. But I brought this to you guys if you wanted it, if you
That's
wanted for your,
wonderful. Thank you very
it's
much.
got the Edmonia Patterson Daniel letter in it.
Yeah.
So this is what we used, and
That's wonderful. Well, yes, what one of the things that she wrote about that I remember is that a lot of times they would wake up the next morning, the townspeople, and maybe part of their chimney had been dismantled, or
Yeah.
the soldiers had taken materials that they needed to build their
yes,
little places to live. And so when I saw this stack of stuff after the high school had cleaned it up a year or so ago, I thought, well, maybe some of these are bricks that, Patterson talked about in her article. And then there are some pieces of what looked like maybe footstone, what would have been marble footstones from some graves, out of the cemetery. There's just a stack of stuff.
okay, so that, what you were saying, I definitely want to address that because I was some interesting things there. This is our paper. This is the last thing that we did, and there should be, if it's still there, a copy of this at the top of the school, at the top of the commons at the high school. There are display cases up there, and there should be artifacts, I hope. And then I also attached a copy of this, which this one's pretty, after 6 years, it's kind of faded a little bit, but you're more than welcome to look at it. But this is the article here. And so what we tried to do as a class is we thought, well, this is probably going to be the only thing about Fort Smith other than the anthology that states that people are going to, people know about, because it's not like it wasn't, I don't know of any necessarily books or anything that were written about it, But so we tried to do the history of Livingston County first, and how it developed, and then why did Fort Smith come to be, which, it's actually two parts. So what we have behind the school is Fort Smith, and then Fort Wright was over here somewhere, but that's long gone. So what you have at Fort Smith is the remnants of the earthworks. So if you climb on top of the earthworks, you can see the points. If you get up there, you can see it. And as you first walk in, there's an earthwork there in the middle, and that's where the cannon was. So they did a lot of archaeology in there to begin with to see if they could find any traces of the track that would have held the cannon, because the 32-pounder would have been in there, which means it shot a 32-pound cannonball. So that, they said, it could, because all the trees would have been gone, but it could fire down 453, anybody advancing, and Highway 60. So very strategic place for this.
And both the confluence of the rivers.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the star points were actually those directions of their target. And they could wheel that cannon around to aim at those.
Well, those star points were the protection. So if you go up to Fort Smith, and you have to get down in the woods, but it's you can see the walls from the outside. You could see it. So that's like that would have protected the soldiers and protected the cannon. In fact, they did metal detecting along those walls because they said that usually the earthworks were fortified with wood, and they didn't find any nails or anything like that. They also didn't find anything in that gun emplacement to indicate that the track had been there. But we do know, and I know you and I talked about this, but we do know that according to they're called returns from military posts, which are the monthly reports that they had to make, that the cannon all that was dismantled and the cannon was removed.
Okay, because we spoke to a former student who shall remain nameless, and he told us that the cannon was buried, and that was the traditional way when a fort was being decommissioned, that the cannon would be buried. And he said that using ground penetrating radar, that they were able actually to see the outline of the cannon. But apparently that was just,
If that
wishful
did happen, if it happened, I wouldn't have heard of it. I don't know
Sure.
about it, but I do know that I was trying to find where I had it on here, that it was decommissioned.
Okay.
Or excuse me, it was taken apart, dismantled, whatever. But thankfully, the schools are allowed a free subscription to ancestry.com. We also got newspapers.com and Fold3, which is the military history. And so we were able to, find all sorts of records, wonderful things that I hadn't heard before. I know that Debbie DeWeese and Vicki Conyer in the 90s, I guess it was, had gone to Washington, D.C. to the archives and had all this material that in the process of them leaving and us starting back at Fort Smith, that material vanished. So, yeah. But a lot of that's accessible online now if you have the subscription. And it's like, I just put in, you have to be careful because you get Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Right.
But Fort Smith, Paducah, Kentucky, and you can find all sorts of stuff.
In Fold3 primarily?
Fold3, yes, mostly in Fold3. And then when we were looking up the particular commanders, we would go to Ancestry and do some of their ancestry there. And then, of course, newspapers.com was wonderful. In fact, I was going to try to find my favorite one to read you, which I think it's just beautiful.
The smaller of those two forts where you guys did your
Yes,
is Fort Starr.
yes,
Okay. Because the earthworks were kind of put up in the form of a star, which
Correct.
was awesome.
yes. In fact,
The way of doing forts in those days,
Yes.
during the Revolutionary War.
and I got my picture. Now I got it too big for you to see it.
So is it incorrect to call it Fort Starr? Its official name is Fort Smith. Is that
The
right?
two combined.
To combine, and that's in the paper too. It's Fort C.F. Smith. So Fort Wright, WRIGHT, and Fort Starr collectively are Fort Smith.
Right.
Let's see. You tell I haven't taught in 6 years. Trying to get my computer to do the things I want it to do. I'm trying to find pictures. Oh, here we go. This one was to our point about the rivers. We talked about that in the history about the flooding and that kind of stuff. And we found this really cool picture of the Smithland, Kentucky falling into the river. So pretty cool picture. Okay, and that's Smithland today. Okay, now this is what's called the Scheller map. And this shows, let's see. Okay, there's a cemetery. This then should be Fort Smith right here.
Right.
Fort Starr.
No, hold right.
With the one to the left of the cemetery would be Fort Starr.
Yeah, there's the cemetery right there.
So,
Is it the other one?
I
over
see.
here?
We're looking at this back.
Yeah, there's Fort.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's Fort Smith. We always called it Fort Smith, but that's not really right because that one is Fort Starr. Now you can see all these lines
Yeah.
coming off.
Yeah.
That's your cannon trajectories. Okay.
That's a town below there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And then you can see the points of the star here. Kind of can see them.
Did you guys run into any records or anything like that about there being some type of site up on top of the hill over to the left of Smithland, just as you turn and go out Tiling Road, that hill right there?
I didn't look, so I don't know.
Okay, because I have heard of something being there that worked
Okay.
with the two.
I'm sure there were. And you know, you had troops all over.
Point.
You had troops camping all over the area too. So there's no telling. What?
Would you repeat that?
I said, and you had troops all camping.
Right.
You know, they had to, you know, and some of the places, some of the homes, and I even have a congressional, it's like we're going to reimburse you at the Smithland First Baptist Church or something like that for that we used your church during the Civil War.
But the horses.
Yeah. Actually, Edmonia talks about it.
There at the
Yeah.
time, and they used that house full of horses.
Well, she says that, was it Lew Wallace? That he did it, and she met him some many years later in New York, and she
Yes.
Yes.
wasn't going to have a thing to do with him because,
Yeah.
and I don't blame her.
Because he come down and take them to their hotel.
Yes.
Confiscate the hotel.
It's turned sideways, but this is the original map.
Yeah.
And
And the soldier drew this, right?
this was Scheller, and
He was a,
yes, and we found some interesting things about him too, which, let's see.
And basically, that was showing the line of shot
Yes.
that they could shoot with their cannon.
Yeah, if you could really zoom it in, you can see that, like I think that's, I can't.
And they
really see
got
it, but-
distances on there.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
Yeah.
You give me just a second. The Scheller thing was kind of interesting. He's the guy that did the map here. Let's see. It was 22.
So basically, they figured they could control all of Smithland and the rivers and the
Yes.
roads going into Smithland from that one side.
Yes, and like I said, I kind of got a little off here, but when Civil War was declared, Kentucky declared neutrality. But this was right between the North and the South. You have you have the Mississippi, you have the Tennessee and the Cumberland going straight down into the Confederacy. This was very strategic. This area was a very strategic place. And when the Confederates moved into Columbus, Kentucky, they violated neutrality. And Grant, who was over in Cairo, he sent troops over here to occupy Paducah. And then from Paducah, they said, go get Smithland. So that's how that all came to be. And this, let's see. This is from a New York Times article dated February 22nd, 1862. Described Smithland during the Civil War. So 62, this was early on. It said, upon reaching Paducah, we found that only a portion of the gunboat fleet had arrived, and this necessitated another delay. Toward night, however, the stragglers came slowly creeping up the river, and soon after the whole fleet started. And by 10 o'clock, we had reached Smithland at the mouth of the Cumberland River. The scene here was magnificent beyond description. The night was as warm as an evening in August in our more northern latitudes. A full moon looked down from an unclouded sky and glanced off from bayonets, plumes, and sword hilts without number. At intervals, long jets of fleecy smoke burst out along the parapets of the two forts on the height overlooking the town, and the bottom of the welcome went, and the boom of the welcome went reverberating over the hills till from the long distance in Kentucky, it came back like a whisper. That's my favorite.
That's all right.
I was like, we got to figure out how to get that in paper. Scheller, though, is what I was talking about, and I still haven't found it in here. Sorry. But he actually later became, well, dang, I can't find that. I'm sorry. And I can send this file to anybody that wants it. It's a Google Doc, so I can send it to you. Anyway, Scheller later is an engineer, and later on he becomes a commissioned officer. I forgot. I could go on forever so long.
And didn't he also wrote his reaction to seeing Smithland? He thought it was a pretty talented.
That one I don't know.
I thought that might be in your paper there, but maybe not.
There was another one. Let's see. This part of it is so long, it's hard to.
We know Lou Wallace in his quarters here. He said they were the nicest quarters in Essex.
Was he at the Gower House?
Nicest quarters he had had in a while.
Where did he stay?
He stayed on that house on Charlotte Street. It's been torn down, which had the had the side carriage we drove through.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where he stayed.
And did the hooks on that, did the hooks on that after a while?
I'm not sure.
So they call that the Lou Wallace.
Floyd hooks.
Okay.
Big Floyd
Is it?
hooks.
It's known as it was Wallace, yeah.
There's a house there on the corner of the paper, what's it?
This house.
There.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Here's another description of Smithland. This comes from the diary of Jabez T. Cox, a young soldier from Indiana with the 136th Regiment, Indiana Infantry, Company B. He writes this in May 1864. The scenery here in Smithland, the scenery is beautiful here in Smithland, for the fort mounting one grove is on a high hill right back from the town and is manned by Company G, 48th Kentucky Volunteers, and a company of the 34th are quartered in the town. There have been some guerrillas near here within a short time, and about 5 miles distant over the Tennessee River. There are plenty. They have 4 picket posts, one on each road, The village has been a very prosperous little place, but the war has brought a great change over the place. Some remains exist of fine brick buildings that belonged to rebels and were destroyed by the soldiers. We stacked our arms in an orchard just behind the town. 1 week ago, the fruit trees in Indiana were just in bloom, but the apples on the trees here are as large as partridge eggs. As I stood on the parapet of, it says Fort Sten, but I think it's Fort Starr, and looked up the river, the little green isles and a far-off shore looked like a band of light blue stretched across the river and down beyond the town. The broad river looked like a street of gold. So that was beautiful. The way they wrote then is just beautiful. Of course, I would say most everybody in Western Kentucky at that time were Confederate leaning, and the people in town were too.
Underneath the surface of the town, though, they were Union, were they not? In feeling, some of them, because they
Probably.
despised the it was Confederate, but they despised the Union because of all the destruction
Yeah,
that those soldiers brought to the town.
yeah. Well, and two, this wasn't really, this area, particularly this area of the state, wasn't the planter class that had, the large amount of slaves like you would have seen further south. So,
Conan.
they were, I watched a video and was talking about how this part of Kentucky looked both north and south as far as economy, and not just in the south. It was more agricultural, well, mostly agricultural. So I guess it would have been, I'm sure there were a lot that were secret Union sympathizers. But Edmonia, in her letter,
Okay, I was just trying to think of
Yeah.
thing,
Yes.
and I wondered if that wasn't it. Yes.
yes, in the letter, is it okay if I read this? Is it okay?
Yes.
Is it okay?
Absolutely.
In the letter Smithland in War Times, featured in the November 1998 issue of the Kentucky Explorer, Edmonia Patterson Daniel, a teenager living in Smithland during the Union occupation, recalls, the residents did not welcome the hostile visitors. She goes on to describe actions by the soldiers that brought the townspeople much distress. This included confiscating residents' homes for personal use, leering at the young women, raiding the chicken coops, nests, barns, and stables and other structures for supplies, confiscating private property, private businesses for conversions to pest hospitals, which were pestilence, which were infectious. And we found, I think there was like two or three maybe in Smithland, at least, I think at least two.
Like for TB and.
Yeah. And we did find a lot of soldiers who had died because of, diarrhea is what it said, because they couldn't do anything about it. This one here, this is the congressional record, the February 4th, 1889 congressional record. By unanimous consent, the Senate proceeded to consider the bill, H.R. 300, for the relief of the trustees of the First Baptist Church of Smithland, Kentucky. It proposes to pay the trustees of the First Baptist Church of Smithland, Kentucky, $500 for the use and occupation of their church building by the Army of the United States during the late war. So yeah, not a lot of.
Didn't she live, and you all, didn't she live in Westwood?
I
Which
believe
is
she did.
Over
I
the
believe she
Yes.
did.
bridge. I'm going the wrong. I have no sense of direction. So I just
Edmonia Patterson.
Daniel, Edmonia Patterson Daniel.
Because I know she used to describe how the prisoners of war looked as it came down the boat, down
They
the
were in
river
Westwood.
boats.
Yes, I'm not sure we used that in there.
She described how the prisoners of war, oh, yes, in that letter.
Yes,
And they were Confederate soldiers and they were very sad to see
Yes.
their boys.
Yes,
tattered and everything.
yes. This is a drawing of Fort Starr. To make myself say that. So this, let's see. This is where you come in, or if you get on that road, it's where you're coming in. And I can't read that because it's kind of, but I think that is the guard. Who thinks the guard house. And here's your star points, and then here is your gun emplacement.
Who drew that?
I think that came from Dr. Carson. It may be Grant. Do you remember that guy, Grant? I can't remember his last name right now. And here we mapped out all the different places that were listed. I think they were listed, all the different places that were listed in some of the, you have to read the paper if you want to. It's kind of hard to. So these are some of the commanders. C.F. Smith. So he's the one that was sent here originally. He was getting in a boat and cut his foot or something. And then he got infected and he died. So I believe that was during the war. And then Lieutenant Colonel August Chetlain was another one. I couldn't find pictures of all of them. There were several that commanded the fort during the 4 years. There's General Lee Wallace.
You wrote down her.
Yes. And then I keep saying these returns from military posts. If you do get into Fold 3, that's the stuff to look for because that's the monthly reports. This is what went on. This is how many soldiers we have. We got so much information from those. And then we talked about the Navy presence because I hadn't heard anybody really talk about that.
I wanted you to speak about that because of that book that you
Yes.
to me, and I found a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. So, as you know, with the two rivers going straight into the Confederacy, those rivers had to be, guarded, and the railroads too. I mean, there's a lot of discussion in the paper about the guerrillas in around the area who were trying to disrupt the telegraph lines and the railroad lines and that kind of stuff. But these were called tin clads. They're smaller. They're not made out of tin, but they're mostly, they say, were like merchant vehicles, merchant ships that were covered to some degree with some plating. And it said that it really couldn't withstand like a cannon but muskets it could withstand. So I don't know that I'm going to be on one of those, but those would patrol up and down these rivers. And what they would do is they would also muster troops in and out of here and supplies and things like that. And then also patrol those rivers to protect those rivers. And one of the commander, here's another paper about that. Leroy Fitch, he commanded.
Yeah, that's the book.
Yeah. He commanded those 10 clads here in Smithland. So really, I mean, it does have stuff to do with archaeology, you know, but it's kind of over here. But we didn't want to leave that out because what if nobody ever tells it,
Right,
you know?
right.
And there's Edmonia Patterson again, talking about how they messed everything up, which they did, you know. The interesting thing is, I'll go ahead and go into, oh, sorry, I talk a lot, I apologize. So these are our methods. This is what we did. All units were measured, excavated using 1 by 1. So this is the stuff that we had to do for KAS. This is all the materials. So all the other stuff we did for Livingston County. This is too, but this is the stuff we had to do for the state. Okay. As far as okay, for us, now remember, Murray State was up here too, and they have a lot of artifacts. But as far as our class and what we found, 1,806 artifacts, give or take. Because sometimes we might be a little miss one here or there or whatever. Most of them were architecture, which means nails, mostly nails, right? And again, that fits right along with what we think up there, that there was a guardhouse up there. Then you have kitchen group artifacts and fuel, which would be like your charcoal, arms, personal furniture. And there was, I've got prehistoric, and I want to say maybe it was some flakes. I can't remember exactly what that was. Like from napping a point. The kitchen group was mostly bottle glass, beer bottles, wine bottles, things like that, pieces of them. And I got pictures and stuff here in just a second, but it goes into talking about the way it was made, a cut bottom mold, which is not all that exciting. But so there's the bottom of a wine bottle that we found up there. And a lot of pieces of ceramic. So this one I have tried over the years to find this pattern. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like a balcony looking thing. And it's a little piece of whiteware. So yeah, it could be stolen. It could definitely be stolen from somebody here in Smithland. Which the nails and all the other things we found could have been, let's just call it appropriated from the residents of Smithland, right? Which what Edmonia was talking about. So the architecture was, here we go. Architecture group was mostly nails, 667 nails. Remember, they look like burnt Cheetos. Window glass and brick. Lots of brick up there. And remember, well, if you go back and look at Edmonia's letter, those are the very things that were missing. So I kind of feel like, and we talk about this in our conclusion, I kind of feel like maybe that's how they built that guard shack, is they borrowed some things from the residents of Smithland. Machine cut nails. We've got, actually trying to get to there we go. Now these nails are better. They don't really look like burnt Cheetos because they are burnt. So if they're burnt, then they don't corrode like those other ones. I don't know the chemical process why that is. That's just what I was told. But you can clearly see those are square head nails. So I'll put the good ones in the paper so you can see it. So the brick is the remnants of the chimney. And then that's where I've got Edmonia in there again. Citizens of the town arose in the morning to find fences gone and chimneys taken down brick by brick for the tent additions and comforts of men. So Where did those bricks come from? I couldn't tell you, but. And then we go into the different the window glass. So when we look at window glass, we have to kind of, like, is it a bottle or is it a window? Well, if it's flat, then it's window glass. If you kind of see any kind of curve to it, that's going to be bottle glass, or maybe even, a lamp glass. But we go into talking about the different ways that they made it. But the window panes here are different colors and different thicknesses, which makes you think they were taken from different areas or different people, like we got a window from over here and we got a window from this house over here. So again, you've got blue tint and green tint windows that we found, glass that we found up there. In the arms group, we found 74 things. Mini balls, lead shot, bullet casings, lead fragments, and percussion caps we found up there. And I will spare you the discussion on mini balls, but this is some of the things that we found. So we've got some mini balls and we've got lead shot. And then this one here is also a mini ball, but the top's been cut off. And when Murray was up here previous to us, they found some of those too. And their conjecture is that it's probably like a chess or a checker piece. So these guys had lots of time, right? They had lots of time because you're doing, I don't know what they do, guard duty, I don't know. So you get bored. So we found that. We also found a flat disc, which we think was probably like a poker chip. I'll show you that too. And also something that looks like a fishing weight. So there it is again. That's the one that we think. Sorry, just so. Okay, there's the percussion caps, which would go on your musket. This is sprue. So they would pour the bullets. They would pour that hot lead into the mold, and then you've got this, the pieces on the top when it comes out of the mold. You got to cut that off. And I'm sure a lot of it they'd save because they'd recast it. But those are some of the pieces that we found in the sprue. That's all right. Clothing group, we found a bunch of buttons. I just did one picture of buttons because the paper was getting so long already. I'm not sure. That first one is kind of weird, and I never have figured out what that was. But that was connected when we got it, but it didn't stay connected, unfortunately. But you've got metal buttons. I don't even know. I'm not sure, but this is a button, but we just put it in there. And you've got some ceramic buttons here too, but most of those are metal. We found some screws, and we're thinking those were from furniture, so that was our furniture. And that the 24-2 is probably a modern one, but we don't know for sure. We left it in there. And here's the what we think is a poker chip. I think that one. I don't know. I don't know if that one's on display up at school or not. I can't remember if Jay took that one back already. And this is just a piece of a glass, like a bottle, like a medicine bottle. But the reason we included it is because it's got a folded lip. So they would heat it up and then they would fold that lip over. You can't really see it in this picture, but it's kind of neat. We got a spoon and a fork. There's I forgot where it was that we've got it included in the paper that the Army said, bring you a tin, bring you a fork, bring you a spoon, bring all that. So these were probably not military issued. These are probably some that they brought from home. And the fork broke in half, but you can see it was a 2-pronged fork there. Now this one's really cool. We found this our last year. And this is it's not a coin. Let me scroll back up just a little bit to get the discussion. This is I think it's called a hard times token. When they didn't have enough coins in circulation, enough small cents in circulation. One side of the coin has a picture of the United States flag surrounded by 13 stars. The words, "The flag of our Union, 1863, encircles the picture. And on the opposite side, the token is the phrase, if anybody attempts to tear it down, shoot him on the spot. And that I said the flag's on one side, I believe, and that phrase is on the other. Shoot him on the spot. Not very politically correct, but I kind of like it. So that one should be up there at the school if you want to go see it. And there's what it would have looked like. Better. The bottom picture is not ours. The top picture is ours. And then this one was interesting. This is a J hook that we found. So the J hooks are things they would hold stuff. So they would like little slits in the leather of this knapsack. Button that in there, and you can hang your canteen. You can hang stuff from it. That I know that one's up there. And then we had here's a rivet. Held some leather together. Who knows what it was from? Little rivet. This one. This is what we found, but this is where it would have been. So it was a canteen ring that went on the top there. And there's our little lead, what we think is a lead fishing weight. Which, I mean, it was found up at Fort Smith. So, you know, there's the artifact, the deposits up there aren't real deep because you're sitting on the top of a hill. Of course, you have runoff and things like that. But our archaeologists feel pretty confident that at least in the area that we were in, we did a pretty thorough job of excavating that spot. You know, we haven't found any privies, which would be interesting. Of course, that's the outhouse. There was a place off to the side they thought was a magazine for storing ammunition, but I think they kind of decided against that later. But, you know, there's probably still a lot of potential up there because where do those guys camp? Wherever they camped, you know, there is if it's not under something that's been built, you know, there's no telling the artifacts. They're the personal artifacts and things that are still there.
Maybe even camped in the cemetery.
That's very possible. Yeah.
Well, where the high schools did that used to be a tent village for their families, because a lot of times your families would travel.
Well, and now, so where the baseball field is up at the top, now, am I correct that that land was kind of bulldozed down to flatten it?
Yes.
So it would have been, so whatever may have been there, you'd have to go find those spoils. You have to go find that dirt wherever they put it and search through that. You might find some stuff. So interesting stuff. And then just our conclusions. And all we said about this was that, you know what, these were a bunch of guys that were up there for 4 years, in and out. And we found the things that attested to that. We found their poker chips. We found their beer bottles, you know. We found the things for their structure, the glass and all that sort of stuff. We found the little medicine bottle piece. We found a walkway. So we found gravel walkway up there. There's gravel all up there. I mean, you know, I wouldn't want to walk in mud all the time either. So I just, you know, when we found that, I was like, really? They made gravel? But I guess nobody wants to walk in the mud. Of course they put gravel up there, you know. But, you know, it's just it just kind of brings it back. Like, you know, they just want the same things I wanted. They wanted comfort. You know, they wanted comfort to be peace and all those sorts of things. So that's what we found, you know, and it really shows it. And then let me go to my little last, let's see. And, you know, the reason that I love teaching archaeology so much is because I wanted them to have a sense of pride and honor in their heritage and their history here, because it is full of history. You know, the Jefferson twins, and you've got Mantle Rock, and there's just so much here.
You know, it's interesting. It's in your last paragraph. It is interesting. I think Doris has noted this in some of her writing. I grew up in Smithland, and that fort was never discussed.
Really?
Never discussed. I've never heard. My mother was a well-educated woman who was raised in Smithland. And for some reason, I don't know whether the trauma of the war lingered on.
That's probably.
Whether they just didn't wish to.
Let's just forget about it.
Yeah, just forget about
Yeah.
it. But Doris has written about that.
Yeah, in the back of their mind psychologically, they didn't want to think about those.
Yeah.
Union fellows who came to town.
Yes. Well, you know, when the very early on in the 90s, when Dr. Carson's was up there, people would come up and speak to him and say, you know, I found this, a cannonball, or I found that on the side of the hill. So people were finding stuff. I guess it just wasn't.
Bobby Martin here in town, did he not have quite a collection of things that he had found? I don't know. I heard that.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to the brave.
Yeah.
Probably just Jenny, but.
Yeah. So that's,
But your paragraph is right on. It's
yes.
very important.
And that's what we hold with the collaboration between the Historical Society and the school system to try to engender in these students an appreciation of the history of this county, the whole
Yes.
county, because the whole county has
Yes.
history, but specifically here in Smithland. And I'm hoping that collaboration will continue.
Did you all ever did you all ever consider that we've got a dozen U.S. colored heavy artillery?
Yes. Yes, they're right up there in the cemetery. We would go up there and look. Yeah. That's, and I think they were, well, actually, in the very back of our thing, we put 2 stories from Barry Craig. If I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's a writer. He used to write for the paper, I think, and he also was a professor.
He still writes. He writes for the Kentucky Lantern now.
Okay. Well, 2 of the articles are from his. We just included them in here because they concern Smithland. One of them is about pot pie for supper, pot pie for dinner. This young man that was at Smithland, he told his dad that when the rebels came up here, they were getting pot pie for supper, which he was talking about. They were going to get a blast from the cannon. And then the other one is about Andrew Smith. Wait a minute. Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
Smith. Am I saying that
He's
right?
black soldier.
Yes. That.
They named the road for him.
Yes. And there's a plaque on that road too. So he was a runaway slave whose master was, I think, in Crittenden County. And they said later he settled back in Grand Rivers, but he escaped and he came here because this was the closest Union fort, and they wouldn't let him join, but he was the I guess servant to one of the commanders. And later with his commander, he got shot in the head, but it didn't kill him. And then
that was the Battle of Honey Hill.
Okay. And then he,
See a flag bearer?
he joined is it the
He got the
50th?
flag and the flag bearer was shot.
Yeah.
He took the flag
Yeah.
and that's why he got the medal on.
Yes.
My husband and I went to Washington DC. We were invited by his grandson.
Awesome.
Because we helped with that.
It's wonderful.
That is awesome.
He's buried in Mount Pleasant Cemetery in Langford Lakes.
Awesome.
And we got a marker there.
Okay.
with that medal on.
I'm telling you.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And he in the 55th Massachusetts? Okay. Which was a
Black.
yes. So a lot of interesting things. And, talking about cemeteries and things, one of the requirements for our course was that you had to, on your own time, by Christmas, go visit a historic site, take pictures, and come make a presentation to the class. So a lot of them were cemeteries in the area, which were really cool because once we got Ancestry, we would look up these people on these gravestones. And, like Westwood, there was one about Westwood. I mean, it just like opened everything up. It was just amazing what we could do there. We also took field trips to Mantle Rock, and I brought you guys, if you want it, this was from 2002. Gwen Henderson spoke at the Paducah Public Library on Mantle Rock about the archaeology that was done there in the 90s. And so this is her presentation on it. So I brought it for y'all.
Sure, we'll take
So,
it.
well, I know I rambled on, but if you have any questions, if I didn't address something and you want to know, please ask.
We surely thank you so much. It's been such a.
I have to say that your class, the archaeology class, was one of the most positive experiences for those kids,
Thank you.
learning experiences.
Thank you.
I wish.
I didn't want you to retire, even though I'm retired. That's fine. I didn't want, because I thought, who will do the archaeology? I really did think that.
I did too. I did.
I
Too.
did.
I did too. And I'm so sorry that Amy Ramage was not able to be here today. She's our superintendent,
Yes.
and she, she is wanting to preserve the history and teach these children about it. But these kids and the teachers up there, they need to see this presentation.
Oh, yeah. They need to
They need to see this presentation.
go up to the fort and
Yeah, they just need to. It really brings it to life what you told us today.
yes. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we'd love to have some copies of the maps. So it's the goal.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of where we got the map. A lot of that stuff came from Dr. Carson's materials. I'll just.
We had some of them.
How can we make sure we have a copy? We're not sure we have a copy of the school's paper it's up here.
I can send it to you. I can send it to you.
Can you email it to me?
Yes, I can because it's a Google Doc.
Then I'll print it out and make sure the Historical Society has a copy.
And just
I may have a copy, but I'm just not sure.
well, just be gentle. It was high school kids and me, and I'm not an English teacher. We did our best, and we got an English teacher to proof it. But I'm not going to tell you it's 100%. Okay. Excuse me.
It's the best we've got.
Sure.
It's the best we've got.
Sure. Sure.
Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I've got our anything. I've got all of our stuff. Like this is the paper that was presented in 2013 that our young men presented. I've got this is the past and your future. And they had an old version, and then they asked our archaeology class, this is the Society for American Archaeology, they asked our class to proof the new one, which we did, and gave them some suggestions. And then we made it into their brochure. That one, I think it's just that picture.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you. And anyway, I can leave you some of those.
Well, thank
I don't know how long ago that was printed, but
That'd be
it's
great.
still good, right?
That'd be great.
And that's all I have.
Thank you.